This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here in the studio back in Colorado for a quick visit. If you've been tracking us online, you know that we are on the road in the mobile studio majority of the time between now and the Consumer Electronics Show. If you will be at CES, drop me a note. Love to host you over at the mobile studio, show you what we're doing. And if you've got a great innovation story or you know of a great innovation story that would allow us to record a show while we're all together at Las Vegas, that first full week of January, drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. We'd love to get an opportunity to hear some great innovation stories, new companies, new technologies, new ideas that are coming up and could have an impact on people's lives. So again, if you're going to be at CES or if you've got a recommended guest for us at CES, just drop us a note, phil@killerinnovations.com. Now, today's show, we are actually having a repeat guest. Now, as you know, if you've been a long-time listener, we typically don't have a lot of repeat guests. But in this case, we've actually bringing back Tom Kuczmarski. Now, Tom is the founder of Kuczmarski Innovation. He was here, I don't know, when was it? It was about a year ago, I guess, wasn't it, Tom?
I think it was probably a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
Phil.
it probably could have been. We were talking about it from the context of, I've known Tom and I've been following his work for quite some time. He teaches up at Northwestern. He's from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I grew up there. But our conversation was a lot around the Chicago Innovation Awards, which have gotten to be, a pretty significant event every year now. And those of us who play in the innovation game track what goes on at the Chicago Innovation Awards, albeit it started off kind of being geography specific, but it's actually become much more of a groundswell support for innovations that could have a broad impact on people's lives. So, Tom, first of all, thanks for taking the time to join us here at Killer Innovations.
Thanks, Phil. Great to be here.
So let's get an update. Now, the Chicago Innovation Awards are coming up here October 29th. You've already been through the selection process, correct? So you've already know who the finalists are. Give us some insight into how this year's crop of companies look like.
Sure. Well, let me give you the starting point, which is from May until July 31st is when we have our nomination season. And this year we had 519 organizations nominate a product, a service, a new business, or a process for consideration for this year's Chicago Innovation Awards. Now, as I tell people, it's easier percentage-wise to get into Harvard Business School these days than it is to win a Chicago Innovation Award. And that's what makes it so special, right? We have a team of 13 judges that have stayed with us now for over 10 years, judging all of these new entrants. And the thing that's so exciting is this. It cuts across a wide variety of different industries. So that's what makes Chicago so unique, though. And I love telling my friends in Silicon Valley, yeah. So you guys are good at this thing called technology, right? But what Chicago is great at is coming up with new innovations that cut across fintech and industrial services and consumer food products and civic and education and just cuts across healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what makes it so unique. So these 519 nominations really do embrace the city of Chicago, the region. Actually, it's more the entire Cook County region as well as the city of Chicago. So we're now down to the final 23 that will be celebrated on the stage at the Harris Theater on October 29th in front of 1,500 people.
Do you break down them into categories then? So what are those categories that those companies break into?
Yeah, we do not have defined categories, but what's emerged over the years is this natural break in terms of a portfolio mix. And I'll tell you what these categories are. They are healthcare, IT, communications, consumer products, business services, fintech, energy, civic, education, and consumer services. Wow. So as you see, it's a wide range. It really is, Phil, of different types.
Yeah, and your point about Chicago, and I think people who've not spent, a significant amount of time. I grew up there. My wife and I both grew up in Chicago. I always tell the joke. My mother was a Republican election judge in Cook County. The joke was she was an endangered species.
Yes, that's for sure.
in Cook County. She was also on the school board and all of those types of things. But Chicago does have such a mix. Heavy industrial on the south to, the healthcare with great hospitals like University of Chicago and Northwestern Health or those. And then you got great universities from a university research perspective. You got the Chicago Board of Trade and, fintech. You pretty much have, it's the melting pot of ideas, and that's really where the city grew up from its early days. Were there any big?
You're exactly right about that.
Yeah. Back from the old meatpacking days, I remember as a kid in the '60s, when they were still doing the meatpacking, heavy slaughtering, still within the city limits. Were there any big surprises, companies that are just kind of like, out of the norm of something that you want to talk about? Sure.
I'll tell you about one that, now we all have to keep this a secret though until October 29th, except for only your listeners who are going to hear this. Only your listeners, Phil. So one of the 23 winners this year is a company called Farmer's Fridge. And Farmer's Fridge is a fresh salads, fresh healthy food that's served to you coming out of a vending machine. Now, you say, whoa, wait a minute, a vending machine? Well, that's where I might be able to get potato chips and candy bars, but you're talking about healthy food out of a vending machine? Yep. And it is amazing. They've created these plastic bottles that you'll have your salad in, and in the top is a separate container that has the dressing in it. But they have barcodes on all of these, and they're able to tell at any hour exactly the inventory in each one of these, and can then change that inventory on a consistent basis to make sure that all the food there is fresh, and it's going gangbusters. People love it. They're putting it into office buildings and where people are working and just want to be able to get a quick meal. But I think it's such a great example of what I call a business model innovation. I mean, salads, fine. What vending machines have been there, but they've put it together in a system and using technology in a way that enables it to work.
That's amazing. I mean, well, you go to Japan, and you just, I were talking before we started the show today, you're just back from Bangkok. But, my wife and I, we spent a month in Japan not too long ago, and you just look at everything as vending machine, right? It's just phenomenal. But, you're always kind of sketchy when you're looking at food in a vending machine, right? It's kind of like, am I gonna really take the risk that sushi is fresh or not fresh?
Exactly. But they've worked this out in terms of being able to use technology to know if it's fresh or not.
Perfect. Yep. Well, we're going to pause here. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to pick up our conversations. And Tom, specifically, in the next segment, what I'd like to talk about is kind of getting your update on innovation best practices, both in your own consulting work, but also as you look at the companies that have made it into this final 23, kind of a mashup of the best practices that you're seeing out there that the listeners could then take back and apply to their own businesses and to their own activities. And also, I'd like to get a little bit of catch up when we come back around some of the other activities you got going on in Chicago Innovation, such as the Student Innovation Convention and the Woman Mentoring Co-op in particular. So when we come back, let's pick up on those two topics, because I think those are hot areas that everybody in the innovation game is keenly focused on. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're continuing our conversation with Tom Kuczmarski. Tom is joining us talking about the Chicago Innovation Awards. But just as we were wrapping up the last segment, I wanted, Tom, for you to give us just a quick discussion around two things. One is the Chicago Student Invention Convention. I've been spending a fair amount of time in education, and in fact, the near future film that we just released in August looks at the future of education in ed tech from an innovation perspective, but also want to talk about the Woman Mentoring Co-op. So let's start with the Student Invention Convention. Give us a little background on what that is and where it's at.
Sure. Well, see, that's one of the things, Phil, that I've just been so excited about over these past 17 years as Chicago Innovation has continued to grow. So it started off as one awards program, but now has emerged into a monthly event and three of these different programs, the first of which I'll talk about, the Chicago Student Invention Convention. So think of kindergartners through eighth graders that go through a 10-week training program with their science teacher that can be held either in school or after school, that really focuses on, and it's a STEMmy approach, which is STEM plus invention and entrepreneurship, that really enables them to come up with a new invention. And then it all culminates in April. This last April, we had 300 kids, their parents, and their teachers and principals at a high school here in Chicago for the final invention evaluations, with over 90 judges that were going around listening to 3-minute presentations by 300 kids. And we had 300 finalists that then went to, we had 30 finalists out of the 300 finalists in Chicago that then went to nationals in Dearborn, Michigan, to the Henry Ford Museum. And we had two, a third grader and a fourth grader ended up as finalists. So the thing that just overwhelms me is how you see these kids that, you think of the old science fair where, the poster boards, but they actually have more than the poster boards. They have the invention that they've created. So let me just give you two examples. A fourth grade girl this last year, her mom would say to her, okay, go out and get the mail. And she'd say, well, Mom, the mail hasn't come yet. Well, just go out and check it anyway. So she got tired of always needing to go out and check the mail when the mail wasn't there. So she puts a sensor in the mailbox so that once the mail is put in, the sensor activates and pings her phone, and then she knows to go out to the mailbox and get the mail. or a third grader who had difficulty spreading butter on toast. Well, I'm not a third grader, and I have difficulty spreading butter on toast with a knife. So she gets a glue stick, with the rubber ball on the end of it, puts the butter in the glue stick. So then she presses down on the toast with the end of the glue stick, and the butter comes out, and she spreads the butter on her toast. Isn't that just great? These kids are coming up with real inventions. Some of them are environmentally focused and the like, but we're just so excited about it for two reasons. One is that we are engaging kids at an early stage in the art of invention and innovation. And number two, they're experiencing innovation at an early age. And I'll just tell you one last thing. I told all 1,000 people at this last event in April with them, and I said, I want to tell you right now, in 10 to 15 years from now, I know that I'm going to be seeing at least one of you on the stage at the Harris Theater getting a Chicago Innovation Award for your new invention. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful program. Last year we had 3,000 Chicago Public School kids participate in this, and this year we'll be at 5,000 kids that'll be doing.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And then the Women's Mentoring Co-op. So 4 years ago, we wanted to engage women more. We wanted to get them more involved in Chicago innovation, and they already are in this city. But we wanted to find a way to be able to help and help boost their ability to, get more commercialized, and actually, in effect, Phil, to boost their own confidence too. And so we started with 25 high-powered women and started this Women's Mentoring Co-op. So it's really mentoring women, but women mentoring women. It was so successful, we doubled it to 50 last year, and this year we'll serve over 100, have over 100 mentors mentoring mentees, and next year it'll be double that. And the beauty of it, I think the real value of it, in fact, the woman that heads this up for us, Allison Dillon, has an article coming out in Crane Chicago Business this week on the power of women mentoring women, because there are indeed things that they're dealing with that we as men are not. And so that the ability to have people that have been successful and highly entrepreneurial innovators who can share with them and guide them in a number of different directions is really working. And the last thing I want to say about it, oh my gosh, I go to all of their events and I just feel that the strength and the power of this community that's now been built is just really, really terrific. So that will continue to double in the future.
And then you've also got some activities going on around the what you called the matchmaking programs, right?
Oh, I love this one. Because this is geared, corporate startup matchmaking is geared for large corporations. And, large, over $1 billion in sales. And these companies, to their credit, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I think have made a massive, major turning point where they understand that they need to be connected to the entrepreneurial community. If you go back 10 years ago, the large corporation is going to say, whoa, I don't need to, these are little entrepreneurs. No, I've got my own internal R&D, all my own internal capabilities. I don't need to be connected to them. Well, that has changed because now so many of them, one of our winners, I just love to tell the story about 7 or 8 years ago when I talked to the CEO of a major hotel chain. And I said to him, this Airbnb, is no, Tom, don't worry about that. That's just a small little, entrepreneurial thing that deals with vacationers. I deal with business travelers. Well, last year, Hilton and Intercontinental sold fewer nights combined than all of Airbnb. So they've recognized these little entrepreneurial startups are their future competitors. And what we do is we identify small companies with large corporations.
And that's actually important. In fact, here at where I'm CEO, we have a program called Fiterator where we do kind of a similar thing, but industry specific, looking for startup companies and matching them into, in this case, the cable industry. So we're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Tom. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll talk briefly about some new thoughts on innovation best practices. And then, Tom, I have to say, you're probably one of the biggest cheerleaders, evangelists for Chicago innovation. And I think it's that encouragement that's allowed Chicago innovation to achieve its success. When we come back, I want to talk about that recognition and encouragement. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Well, welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're continuing our conversation with Tom Kuczmarski. Tom is a repeat guest. One, he's an innovation expert, and then two, his excitement and involvement with the Chicago Innovation Awards and all of the innovation programs going on in Chicago. But Tom, I want to take a break here. You're a consultant out there. You see a lot of best practices that different companies are trying as part of their innovation program. Give us one or two that are maybe things that you're seeing that are having some of the biggest impact as far as innovation best practices.
Sure. I'd say first and foremost, Phil, is when a company identifies and truly understands a customer or consumer pain point, Understanding what it is that the customer is being frustrated about, has a need for, really has a real worry about. And see, as soon as you get to that, as soon as you uncover that insight for a consumer, if it's B2B, or for B2C, or for a customer, if it's B2B, then you know you're on the right track for success. Let me just give you an example. One of the, if you're a diabetic, you have to have your blood taken all the time to be able to read your glucose level. That means you have to prick yourself, right? I mean, there's nothing fun about any of that. Well, Abbott has now created a new innovation that has a patch, has a metal patch that you put on the back of your arm. You hold your iPhone up to it, and you can read your glucose level every day without ever pricking yourself. We'll talk about solving a consumer need, right? In the same way, though, that a company like SMS Assist is a company that has a network of contractors that will deal with retail store managers, so that when they need an electrician, when they need to clean the floors, when they need anything, they just contact this SMS Assist and they provide it for them. So it eliminates the pain of the store manager needing to do all this themselves. So identifying pain points is number one. And number two is utilizing a cross-functional team of people. Innovation is not a single sport. You may be a great innovator by yourself, but you really can't do it unless you've got a team of not big, but 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people who are also having different perspectives from different experiences, and the more diverse, the better. So pain points and using cross-functional teams are two of the big best practices that I see.
And then this kind of tees up into your book, right? Because one of the things I found over my 30 years in the innovation space, though, is the ability to encourage people that they can innovate, that they can create, that we are just all naturally creative. We've had it either beat out of us, or the educational system hasn't encouraged it. So you and your wife actually just did a book, correct?
Yes, we did. It came out in May. It's called Lifting People Up, The Power of Recognition. And to your point, Phil, it really is all about the need for us to change leadership at the top of an organization. And in fact, we even come up with a new word. Instead of calling it leadership, and that means typically, right, focusing on the 1, 2, 3, 4 people at the top of an organization, we need to change that to peopleship. And peopleship needs to be the word now that captures what leadership is all about, because our focus has to be on the people within an organization and how we as leaders make sure that we are motivating them and making them feel valued every day, that their contributions count, and they understand and recognize the role that they play in satisfying and ultimately achieving the goals and the missions of an organization. Now, to innovate, this has to be top of mind all the time, because, oh my gosh, right? You and I have seen it so many times. It's so easy to point your finger and say, no, that'll never work, and here's why. We've tried it before, et cetera, et cetera. And as the innovator, you have to stay the